Welcome back, everyone, to the Burnout Club. This is a place where we discuss burnout and success, one expert and experiment at a time. I'm your host, Patrice Bonfilio, and today I'm joined by Matt Smith, owner of Kicksmith Studios. Hi, Matt. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Very excited to be here. Thank you for the invite.
Oh, yeah. I am very interested to talk to you because you have accomplished something I think is very, very difficult. So you have a successful career in finance and banking, right? Household names that everyone will know, biggest hedge fund in the world. And on top of all that, you have launched a brick and mortar business
I did.
that also
Yeah.
seems to be thriving. So I think we need to understand who are you and how did you do all this? So tell us about yourself and what is Kicksmith Studios.
Yeah, of course. So again, really appreciate the invite. As you said, have had a very successful career in financial services, working at GE Capital, Bridgewater Associates, Sterling and Webster Bank, and then now at Columbia Bank. Most of my career has been concentrated in financial services, but I've done a lot of different functions, right? So everything from, corporate finance to operations to marketing to product to, new business launch and design and run, right? So a lot of different things. And I think that those experiences, that diversity of experience has given me a lot of confidence that there's like not many things that I don't think that I can do, right? It's like, so if I put my mind to it, I'm like, okay, I can figure this out. And then, kind of if we go a couple months ago, or I guess we'll go 6, 8 months ago, I had a little bit of time between jobs and found myself pretty bored at home and decided I wanted to try and launch my own business, right? For multiple reasons, right? One is just to see what you could do. One is to chase a little bit of a passion and have some fun with it. And then there's the tax purpose to things, right? So that it helps
True
you.
finance guy.
Yes, so there's a tax reason there. But I also wanted to try and create jobs and do some things. So we launched this Kicksmith Studio business. It's located in Norwalk, Connecticut. The name is actually just a little bit of a play on words, right? So obviously my last name is Smith, but if you think of like a tradesman, a blacksmith, any type of smith, right? It's a tradesman, right? And so we thought that was an interesting way to describe what we're doing because we're teaching people how to basically customize their own sneakers, right? And we do it in somewhat of a traditional paint and sip model, right? Where we've got classes where you can kind of come in. If you're an adult, we've got, a bar and you can grab a drink and we kind of teach you how to do these things. If you're a kid, you just come in and just wreak havoc on the shoes, which is also really cool to watch and very fun. And then we do parties and things of that nature, either again for adults or children, right? But it's all centered around that theme of like helping people, unlock a little bit of creativity, doing something different and unique and focusing on, kind of building, relationships or, camaraderie between family members or, spouses or, friends, any of that stuff. So that's the theme behind it.
Oh, I love that. And also you're really converging with a lot of themes I talk about just with burnout. One being boredom is good, right? And you said that word. I can tell my kids now, like, see, boredom leads to great things.
It's true. That's true.
Yeah. And also just entering into a creative realm, even if you're a numbers person, even if you don't think you have creative talent, you don't need to be talented to just try creative things, which I think your business is hitting on. So that's exciting to give people a little bit of an outlet. That seems like it would be really successful.
Yeah, so far so good. It's been about 4 months now. We're entering into the 4th month. Exceeding expectations is what I would say. It's been
nice.
Going very well. Yeah, so we're very blessed and it's great that it's working out.
So why don't you take one step back and just explain to people that haven't heard the word sneakerhead, like what is it and how did you know that you were one?
Yeah, I mean, this was a journey for me starting in middle school, right? So it's been a really long time. One of my usual fun facts, if I'm doing like an introduction, is I have over 500 pairs of sneakers, right?
Oh my God.
So it's a journey. What's funny is in my circle, that's actually not a lot, right? Like, but to normal people, that's a lot. But there's, I know some people that have like a very big collection, right, in comparison. But it's one of those things where like I always thought sneakers were a very good way for me to express myself, right? Especially, when I was younger. getting a new pair of shoes made me feel different, right? And, I didn't really care about the shirts or the pants or any of that stuff. It was more about the sneakers, right? And it was a form of expression. And I think when I got to high school, what was interesting was like I ended up going to a private high school, and so we're all wearing uniforms. And I would, try and use the footwear a little bit to stand out, right? You weren't necessarily allowed to wear sneakers. There's stories of me doing that and getting, detention for it, and it was worth it, right? But I don't think my mom was happy about that, but it was a thing, right? And so it's funny because I can think back to when I was a kid, like literally just getting jobs to pay for sneakers, right? Like before you knew, that this was going to be a thing. And then, in my adult life, what's been great is, having it as a hobby, and it's not, a thing that's like I collect cars or something, it's it can get pricey, but it's not like that, right? So to me, it's like a healthy hobby. I don't recommend it for kids, right? Because I'm like, it's expensive and you guys should focus on, saving money and doing that kind of stuff, right? But I do think that, again, your sneakers, everybody wears something, right? Like, and I usually look at people's feet and I can tell a lot about them, right? Like, are you wearing Birkenstocks? Are you wearing Uggs? Are you wearing pumps? Are you wearing, it tells you something, right? About that person. And I always thought that was interesting. And it's a thing that unites people. And, when I got older, I started playing around with doing my own customizations. I've sourced, sneakers from overseas before with my own models and things of that nature. And
that's cool.
Had this idea to do a business like this probably 3 years before I started. And then just, kind of kept the idea in the back of my head until I had a little bit of room to execute, and then just put my head down and went. And that's kind of how we got here.
That's amazing. I love that you've taken a model that's been really tested a lot, that the paint and sip model is working, right? There's plenty of paint and sip places, and they all seem to be doing great business. And now you've given it a new, fresh twist. And I think also expanded the market too. I can see more, I don't know, maybe the demographics, but like I feel like men would be more willing to do customized sneaker paint and sip versus your standard one. Are you seeing everybody come in?
Yeah, it's a very mixed bag, right? My business partner, Greg Self, and I were talking the other day, and we were like, we've had everybody from 6 to 60 years old, all ethnicities, all genders, right? Like what's nice about it is, to your point, like I think the paint and sip is a really interesting concept, right? But it is a little bit, in the traditional fashion, is a little bit more skewed towards like adult females. And I think that, what we tried to do was put a fresh twist on it with something that could span age groups and demographics, right? And so we truly have had a mixed bag. It's been interesting because, I've got childhood friends that'll come up and kind of do it, right? And they kind of grew up with me, but then I'll also have like a group of very affluent PTA moms, right? That, they wanted a night out with their friends and they come and do that thing. Or we'll have little kids, that after school programs, we've had teams that want to customize their own sneakers. We've had bachelorette parties. We've had team building exercises. We've had nonprofits, right? Like, so everybody's into it, right? And my favorite part is when we start a class or we start a session and someone says, and it always happens, right? They're like, I'm not creative. I don't do these things. And I'm like, I just want to watch that person the entire time because they get really into it, right? Like unknowingly. And at the end, they've got this like really cool thing that they're very proud of. And I'm like, I thought you weren't creative. Like what happened to all that, right? Like, so it always ends up the same, right? And it's a thing where you can't really mess it up, right? Like it's your creation. It's a one of one, right? And so you're going to like it because you made it, right? And all we're doing is giving you the confidence and the tools and, the techniques to be able to make that thing come to life, which I think is good. And then the other added benefit to it is you can actually wear it, right? Like a lot of times you do the paint and sip thing and you put the thing in your closet and you never see it again, right? Like people, we have people tag us all the time on Instagram where they're like, I wore my sneakers today. They were really cool. Like, I love this. The kids are really into it. So it's a nice thing. It's just a different view of it. And I think it's a little bit more, inclusive at all levels. Yeah.
I'm just laughing because my older daughter opened the closet the other day. She's like, what's that painting doing in there?
Yeah,
I'm like,
exactly.
Close the closet. Just...
Right, exactly.
Go back in the hallway.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Yeah. Well, I love this story. What advice do you have for someone that's very similar and like they have a well thought out idea? They haven't taken the plunge yet, but they're trying to either get the confidence to actually do it or flesh out an idea and kind of follow your same model where you're keeping your career. You didn't give everything up to go do it. Like, what would you say to those people?
I worked at Bridgewater, and I talk a lot about, when I go through like the steps of execution and all that other stuff, and I learned a lot from that process. There's another thing that I don't talk about as much, which is like these principles that they teach you when you work there. Oh, yeah. It's a very interesting place, right? But if you put some of the kookiness aside, right, and listen to the message, and maybe not always how it's delivered, right, there's some very powerful things in there. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that they teach you about is these list of principles, and you can decide if you like some or not, right? But my favorite mm-hmm. one was always, you can have anything you want, but you can't have everything you want, right? Mm-hmm. And when I think about that, I go, that is insanely true, right? And mm-hmm. if you really poke it back at anybody who you benchmark success off of, right? Whether it's financial, life, like however you want to, athletics, whatever it is, they mm-hmm. sacrifice something, right? They didn't have everything, right? So Michael Phelps talks a lot about how he, won all those medals. He didn't take a day off for, 18 years of his life, right? Like that's a sacrifice, right? So he didn't have everything, but he wanted mm-hmm. that one thing and he was willing to do that thing. So mm-hmm. coming back to your question, I think it's just a matter of prioritizing what you want, right? And then mm-hmm. going after it. I tell my kids all the time, I'm like, the biggest difference between people who are successful in the things that they go after is discipline, this concept of discipline, right? Which mm-hmm. in a very elementary definition is a person's wherewithal or ability to do a thing that needs to be done when they don't want to do it, right? So you wake up and you're like, I don't really feel like going to the gym. I don't really feel like doing this. I don't mm-hmm. it's not that important to you, right? Like if it's important, right, you'll go after it. And I think that's the key to the success is like, I could give you all the advice of like, model it this way or, hire this person or do that stuff. But at the end of the day, it's mm-hmm. really just a matter of like, you just have to go, right? And mm-hmm. when you decide it's time, listen to yourself and go, right? And go do mm-hmm. that thing and bring it to successful completion. Yeah,
that's a very helpful response. I think it makes it less complicated, right? Yeah. Because everyone's always chasing to have everything all at once. And I've been thinking about that question too, like, can you have it all? And I almost think that implied in that question, people are really asking, can I have it all and love it? Like, and the answer is no. Like you can have it all, but you're going to have significant burnout, right? And there's going to be parts of that you're going to hate and find overwhelming, right? Because you can't do everything in the most amazing way all the time. So I like how you explain that, right? And the prioritization. Oh. And I mean, just digging deeper into that, you're also a big family guy, right? You are prioritizing family. So how are you navigating that so well? Like, it's really admirable.
Yeah, I think part of it was, understanding what it takes to be successful in these different tracks, right? And so like, we'll use Kicksmith as an example. My goal for myself was to completely remove myself from the day-to-day operations of the business, right? Which then gives me capacity to focus on my primary career and then also spend that extra time with my children. What's funny is I was at the studio earlier today and then I was like, I haven't been here in like maybe a month, right? Like it's been a while because I've got good people that I hired, right, to, to kind of take over it, right? I mentioned Greg earlier, who's been fantastic in doing this. And I think, as part of that goal setting, right, what do I want this to be? It wasn't just launch the business. It was launch the business and have it be self-sustaining, right? Like it can operate independent of me. And if you keep that as a goal, right, then, you're going to check all those boxes until you get there. Because to me, what's very important is I have 3 children, 13, 10, and 3. I want to be there, right? They're at very, very important points in their life, right? Where I think, our number one job, and you have kids, right? So you can attest to this, right? My number one job outside of all these things is to turn them into good people, right? And so you can't do that if you're not there, right? And so sure, I could sit and say, I was here working really hard or I was doing these things, right? But my goal has always been to like try and make it so that way I could manage those things. And then going back to the point of sacrifice, like some things, I don't get to do, right? Because
Yeah.
I want to be at that basketball game, or I want to be, at that music recital, or whatever, the event might be, you
Hmm.
name it. I think you got to make those decisions, right? And it goes back to that whole, what do you prioritize, and going after those things. And, it might sacrifice. I was talking about my friendships, and we have some mutual friends, but
Yeah.
my friends, I might hang out with them once every 6 months, right? Like, and that's
Hmm.
just our relationship, right? Because they have kids and they have careers, and I have kids and I have careers. And that
Hmm.
doesn't mean we're any less friends. We text and we can group chat and do all these things, and we send memes and we joke and all that other stuff. But I
Yeah.
sacrifice we can have dinner once or twice a week, because that's the thing that I have to give up, right? As part of that. So,
Yeah. So
yeah.
reminder, everybody, text your friends.
Yes, you got to do that.
Keep that lifeline open.
Exactly.
No, but
Yep.
I'm on the same page where I do want to be there, right? I want to be successful in my career, but family piece I'm not willing to give up. So
Right.
it's been an interesting journey, and just reflecting on, okay, what am I teaching my kids through my actions, right? Because
Yeah.
it doesn't have to just be what you say. So I always have to audit myself like that.
Yep.
But yeah, great insights that you're giving.
No,
So
thanks.
I feel like also talking about, the lighter side, what has been the best thing about launching Kicksmith Studios?
Honestly, I think I'd answer it a couple different ways, right? I,
Hmm.
I think contributing to the community has been very rewarding for me.
Yeah.
I really enjoy the fact that, we're creating jobs, right? We're, partnering with schools. We're
Mm.
giving, opportunities for kids to come in and, do some things that are a little bit more creative. I
Yeah.
think that's really great. And then providing a service for the community, right? That like fills a gap, right? Like people don't always want to go to the movies or always want to go to
Hmm.
dinner. They might want to do something different. I
Yeah.
think that's really good, right? And noble. I think the other thing that I would say is a really big, like, heart smile moment for me is setting that example for my children, right? Like,
Mm.
and watching them, kind of watch me do it, right? And
Yeah.
understanding, through that they can do whatever they want, right? And
Hmm.
giving them more confidence through, some of the successes that I've had. And I think this is what's funny is I could be, Elon Musk, right, at this point, and it wouldn't mean
Mm.
as much as this thing, right?
Yeah.
Because it's a tangible thing that they can see. They don't see me go to work. They see me get up and go to, like, leave, but
Yeah.
they're not seeing what I'm doing every day, right? Like,
Hmm.
this is an actual tangible thing. They're in the studio. Like, my son helped decorate some of the pieces, right? Like, my
Hmm.
daughter was in there today, like, helping me, put some stuff together. It's tangible, right? And they see it and they're
Yeah.
like, wow, you did this thing. And I've never seen a reaction like they have to this. They want to
Hmm.
wear the merch, they want to do all that stuff. I worked at other places, they're not wearing like GE Capital sweatshirts. Like, they don't care about that, right? Like, it's
Right.
not, this is different, right? And so I think that's
Yeah.
very rewarding for me, right? That's a great thing.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good point, right? Because I have that with my kids and the podcast. Even though this is still digital, like, they
Right.
still see, like, when they saw an episode on YouTube, they're like, "What? This is real? Yeah, this is so cool."
Yep.
And it just, there's a connection that will never be the same as, oh yeah, mommy
Right.
works for a hedge fund. They don't know what that
They
really
don't get
means or what it
they might get
entails.
that when they're like our age, right? That's the
Yeah.
thing, right? And so, like, stuff they get now, right? And they're impressionable
Hmm.
now, right? So you want to set those examples and give them the confidence that they can go out and do all things, right? So I think it's been very rewarding in that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other piece I wanted to ask you about, because I think it would be helpful for other people that are thinking about starting businesses, you mentioned like how great of a partnership you have with Greg, and he's running day-to-day options.
Yeah.
Operations? Can you talk about how you found the right fit for that partner, and just
Yeah.
felt good about that sort of transition where you weren't going to be day-to-day operations? Because
Yeah.
I think a lot of people
Yeah.
struggle finding the right partner, or they'll go in
Yeah.
with family and you're maybe not using the same criteria. So what was it like for you?
Yeah, I think so. I've known Greg for upwards of 20 years, right? Greg and
Mm.
he's a sneakerhead, as you said, right? Like, so
Yeah.
he's a fellow sneakerhead, and we would always talk about that. We met through a mutual friend that we have, and it's been a long journey of like just me knowing him, right? And when I thought about this, he is a incredible people person, right? He's got such a bright personality, right? Like he hosts a lot of events. He's a musical artist, right? He does a lot of things. He's very creative, and we talk a lot about sneakers. And when I had this idea, I called him and I basically said, I want to do this thing. I'm not sure I'm going to do it if you say no, right? Like, so if you say no, I would have to rethink this whole thing because I don't know of anybody else who's as perfect for this as you, right? So I was pretty bold about that, right? I think that gave him a lot of confidence, right? I think at first he was kind of just like, yeah, cool, call me when you're ready. I'm like, no, I'm saying like in 2 months, I want you to quit your job. And he has kids, right? So I'm like, quit your job. I want you to come here, do this thing with me. And it takes a leap of faith on his end. I mean, thank God I had credibility with him, right? Where he felt, you know, it was a good thing. But I believe in his perfectness for this, right? And really chased after it. And I think, you know, there's always bumps, right? I think Greg is, he'll tell you, right? Like this is new for him in terms of like, he's worked a lot of different places. He's never like owned his own thing, right? And so I'm kind of telling him, I'm like, look, you make the decisions, right? You don't have to call me to, you know, ask me for these things, right? Bigger stuff, sure. Like you want to like spitball some stuff with me or like, well, you know, whatever. But I think he felt not as confident at first, right? Like to do that because he's like, oh, this is, you know, it's your thing. And I'm like, no, it's our thing, right? Like it's our thing. And the way that we set this up was, you know, he's going to have partial ownership and he's, you know, he's running these things, right? Because to me, that's more important than like, you know, it's mine. I, you know, do these things. Like, no, that's not why I started this, right? I started this for multiple reasons. One of them was to create opportunities for people. And he's a person that I care about, right? And I think that he would do fantastic. And he's proven to have done that, right? Like he has far exceeded expectations in terms of his ability to, you know, just command the space and get with the people and drive sales and do all that stuff. It's been great. And I'm here to help by just giving him the tools that he needs to be successful, right? And the confidence that he needs to be successful. And I think the biggest thing that I learned through that process, and maybe this helps other people, is you're never going to have somebody who's not you do it exactly the way you would do it. Right. And that's really tough, right? If you're a high achieving person, right? Like you know, you're like, I have this vision and I want it to be that. So the biggest issue for me has been letting him do it his way. Right. And giving him guidance on like, okay, I thought about this and he might take that idea or he might not take that idea or he might do something different. I'm laughing. Like a good example of this is like, I'm thinking of, we need to do, you know, SOPs, right? Like, so we know like coming in, like we're going to do these things these days. And I'm thinking, you know, you go on a computer, you type it out, you laminate it. Now we got it. And so we give it to he drew it on the wall. Right. I was like, not the way I would have done it. Right. But I'm like, I'm looking at it. I'm going like, it's pretty cool. Right. You walk in, like it's in the office. Right. But I'm like, he's got an entire wall of like, this is what I do. This is my checklist. This is how I think about the world. There's nothing wrong with that, right? Like that's your way, right? That's the way that you want to run it. Do it, right? That's great. We accomplished it. We just took different ways to do it, right? And like that's a simple example, but I think the biggest thing for people who own things is you can't expect somebody to live in your brain, right? And so give people the ability to be able to like make it their own. And I actually think you get a better result from the folks that you work with because they feel more empowered and they feel more connected to the thing that they're doing because it's their idea, right? And they had a way to do it. So I think that was the biggest piece for me, you know, in terms of advice that I would give to people.
That's great. And I can back you up with the autonomy. When people feel like they do have that decision power and creativity, and that's when they can really just have ownership and enjoy what they're doing. And I think ultimately, if you have people that are passionate, that's when you have success, right? And it starts by, you know, making sure you're not too in the weeds. And everybody can do that in their current job, right? Even if you're not starting a brick and mortar, that's a good practice. I'm going to try that a little bit more this week.
I think I had to get there too, because when, you know, in some of my past roles, I've had, you know, upwards of 150 people on staff, right? And I'm like, when you're managing that much stuff, it's impossible for you to like get into the details of everything. So you gotta let go a little bit, right? And I used to be very particular about how I wanted things, and I got to a place where I softened up on that. And then this kind of reemerged in this setting with the Kicksmith thing. And then I just started thinking about it, and I'm like, you know what? Let him do it, right? Like, let him do it the way that he wants to do it. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? And I think we've got a really good working relationship because of that.
Yeah. You just reminded me, because even this past week, I try to be good at that skill. But I was on one call, and I was like, why am I on this call? Like, I should be detaching from this, Like we all need reminders.
Yep.
But so thank you for that.
Yeah, of course.
Now, what would you like to leave with the listeners? Like, what Mattism should they have as your parting thought?
A Mattism. Well, since you talk a lot about burnout, right, I'll say that, and maybe I try and make things as simple as possible, right, when it comes to stuff, because like I think as humans we can overcomplicate things, right? So when I thought about the topic of burnout, to me it's just about listening to yourself, right? Like, so what's funny is I took 2 days off, right? My kids are off from school this week. I took 2 days off from my job yesterday and today, right? I was not originally going to do that, but I felt I needed a mental pullback, right? To just like think about some stuff that's been happening, right? Like, how can I execute more efficiently, right? Like, how can I problem solve a little bit differently, that kind of stuff. And I just listened to myself go like, you need to not push through this. You need to like take a break, right? And I think, to say it simply, like, it's not that deep, right? Like, just listen to yourself, right? Like, if your body's saying, hey, look, you need to stop, right? Stop, right? Like, take a day off, right? Reset, think about that, right? Like, there's very few things where, like, if you took 24 hours away from it, that it's going to, like, explode, right? And so I think, the biggest piece would just be, as you go on this journey of, like, being disciplined and executing and doing these things, if your body tells you, right, if your mind tells you like, hey, I need a moment, listen to yourself, right? You'll get a better result. And ultimately, it's a better way for you to manage all the things that you're doing, right? Is to sometimes just put it all down, right? Look at it a little bit differently, and then pick it back up with a fresh set of legs, right? Like, and that's, that's kind of the best way that I can think of to kind of manage that as a topic. And I don't know if that's consistent with other people's advice. I'm sure everybody's got, different things, but I think, in a very simple way, just listen to you, right? And listen to what makes sense for you and manage it the best way that you can. Yeah.
And to answer your question, a lot of people are saying that. And I think the problem is that it takes us so long to learn that it's okay to just take a break. And it's okay to just think and not be doing something else. Just think, like you're saying, like, ideas about how to execute better, how to do something, because then you get that spark of creativity on the work side, and you can just feel like you're living instead of just moving through the motions.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I mean, look, sometimes I'm like, I'll say I tend to not sit still very often, right? But sometimes I'm like, I just want to do something mindless, right? So if like, I traveled for work earlier in the week, and I was like prepared going into it to get on the plane and get on my laptop and start doing emails and doing all these things. Yeah. And I kind of sat down and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to watch TikTok for like 3 hours and just like do mindless like things. Every once in a while I need that, right? Like, it's just, I don't want to think about this, right? I want to like clear my head, do these things, and then like come out of that, I'm ready to go, right? Like, and I think that's an example of me listening to myself, right? Taking a day off to just take a step back and think about it. That's me listening to myself. And it could be microwaves, like the TikTok is a microwave, right? Like, that's 3 hours of time that I just like decided not to do emails for a second just to think about this. And then, sometimes it's bigger, right? Maybe you need a week off. Maybe you need a vacation, right? Like, maybe you need to, go hang out with some friends, or, grab a drink with, your significant other, right? Like, whatever it is, right? But like, I think listening to yourself, right? You don't actually get extra points for doing it faster and poorer, right? Like, you get all the points for, delivering something that's great. And sometimes that means you got to take a break, right? Like, and listen to yourself.
Yeah. I say like every fourth trip I take on Delta, for some reason the Wi-Fi doesn't work. It doesn't connect. I'm just like, this is good. This is good.
Yeah. Watch a movie, right? Like, get some sleep, do something. Yeah.
In the spirit of going to try something new and doing something and taking a break, one of our experiments is going to be to go to Kicksmith Studios. So
Yes.
I will follow up for all the listeners, and they will see some footage of that experience. So hopefully it's fun, and you don't prove me wrong that you don't actually need talent to make good-looking sneakers. We'll see.
I promise you will have, not only will it be fun, I promise you will come out with something that is very cool, that you will really enjoy and be very proud of. So it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait for you to have you guys. So it's going to be fun.
Yeah, we will see. So Matt, thank you for being on. This has been really fantastic. Thank you for all the advice and the information about Kicksmith Studios.
No, I appreciate it. And, hats off to your audience. I think, tackling these issues is really important. So it's great. We can learn from each other. And thanks again for inviting me.
Fantastic. So
awesome.
All the listeners and viewers out there, remember to like and follow and share, and watch us on YouTube and subscribe, and check out Matt and Kicksmith Studios. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.